Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Empty Cloud Monastery. We'll be having our normal monk chat for this Friday night. With me is Ayasobana, our new abbot, and I am Samanera Nipako. So we'll start with paying homage to the Buddha, and then after that we can start to answer people's questions.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami.
So our first question online is from anyone at the end of time. Could you explain what the T suffix means in Pali? I see it a lot throughout the Majjhima Nikaya, but it doesn't seem to fit any specific context.
Okay, easy question. We know the answer. The T is usually in the English, it's spelled apostrophe T at the end of a sentence. It stands for iti, which literally means thus. Like when you say iti piso, it means thus, and it means quotation. I'll tell you something interesting about a quotation. Very often, you'll see a phrase where there's addressing the monks or addressing some person, and they said, "What, O monks, do you think is the answer to this?" said the Buddha, and that vocative at the beginning, bhikkhave, you see that typically to tell you this is the beginning of a quotation. And then the T is telling you it's the end of the quotation. So the quotation marks is that vocative phrase at the beginning and the T at the end.
Thank you, Aya. So since I don't see any other questions online, we do have one from the room, which was something along the lines of how can people practice sila nusati, so recollection of their good deeds, and how to continue to do that practice regularly. So this is a practice that I think is underrated and more people should do more often. So one way that I did it in the early days, because I liked to ignore my good things and just brush them under the rug, is I started to write them down. So anything counted. If I held the door open for somebody, I would write it down. If I said thank you, I would write it down. If I made tea for somebody, I would write it down. If I did something big like I guess with this time of year, donate food so that a family could have a Thanksgiving dinner, I'd write it down. Didn't matter how big or how small it was. So this way I couldn't forget. And once I had that habit going, instead of writing it down, I would just think about it before I went to bed. So I made it into a habit. By making it a habit, I had the momentum going. And what was helpful about this as well is it allowed me to see the things that I was doing a lot, as well as seeing things that I wanted to do, but I wasn't doing as often as I wanted to. So then I could do them more and then recollect that I was also doing that. So it was like a sort of habit that fed into itself in a positive way. So by doing good things, I would see the good things I was doing, which made me feel good about doing the good things, and then I would do them more. So the more you recognize them, the more you see you do it and see yourself doing it, the more likely you are to continue doing it because you see the benefits for yourself and for other people. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Only that this is a good example of what's called a recollection in the Buddhist system of practice. There are several different protective recollections, like the recollection of the Buddha, the recollection of one's good deeds, the recollection of generosity, the recollection of heaven, and these are discursive thought recollections. So, as the Samanera described, one is not just sitting in silence, directing the mind towards the subject and sort of silently contemplating good deeds, but instead one is reviewing a narrative of the list of the good deeds. And then as you bring up those thoughts, you could be aware of the feelings and so on that are that come up when you bring those thoughts. So the Brahmavihara is also in the same way. When you think, may my parents be well, happy, and peaceful, may no harm come to them, may no difficulties come to them, may no problems come to them, may they always meet with success, may they also have patience, courage, wisdom, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable problems, difficulties, and failures in life. So that's a discursive meditation. You're saying several sentences and then bringing the meaning to mind. And after you do that, then you can come into silence and be aware of how it feels or what the state of mind is after you've done that thinking. So you do that thinking first, and that brings up a state of mind. And then after that, you can come to the silence and just notice that wholesome, positive state of mind and sit with that quietly.
Thank you, Ayo. Hello, Anagarika. Hello, Ryan, Gregory, Yankee Apple, Miss Sri Lanka, Random Ramblings, and Diane. So I see a half question from Random right now. So while they're still typing, we'll go to Ryan's question. Venerables, could you expound on the benefits of meditating for blocks of 4 to 5 hours straight, please? I.e., approach benefits, if any, how often, once, twice, 3 times per week, etc.
In my experience, different durations of meditation, different durations of retreat have different results, different kinds of benefits. So it's most important, whatever pattern you've taken, to try to be really consistent and don't go backwards. So it could be more beneficial to meditate every day without fail for 20 minutes morning and evening than to have a long meditation just occasionally when you happen to have time for it on an irregular basis. Having said that, the mind, it really depends on what your practice is. For many people, there's a certain momentum of thoughts and emotions that you've picked up during the day, and then when you sit for meditation, all of those thoughts and emotions are kind of discharging themselves and maybe tending to pop up in the meditation. So it's not easy to go into real silence. It's possible to practice vipassana, clearly seeing the arising and passing away of possible thought content that could be arising, or possible emotion or feeling states that could be arising. And maybe during your short meditation, that's all you have a chance for, because you don't really fall into silence. But then with a longer meditation, one can, that momentum can wear out, and one can really go into silent practice where that discursive thinking is not happening at all, where one is able to gain some samadhi, to gain jhanas or excess concentration, something close to that, where the mind is really still and quiet. And why those states are beneficial. Those states where the mind is really quiet, where the momentum of discursive thinking has really gone down, where the hindrances have really gone down, that's the agitation arising from hindrances has really gone down, where the mind is peaceful. It's a very powerful state for wiping out the tendency of the mind towards reactivity. And we spend all day long, day in and day out, week in and week out, reacting to things as we need to do in order to do our job and to do our duties, whether we're an employee, a parent, or a student. There's so much things that have to be done, and so the mind is continuously activated, taking care of things that are necessary to do. And to be able to really stop and let go of all that activity allows the heart, the mind, even the physical brain to really recuperate and to experience a peaceful state, to experience the possibility of getting off the merry-go-round of samsara, of no longer needing to do any more actions. We don't have to create any more karma. So while the mind is really still, it's able to know experientially that that's a possibility. That's just my thought. It's not based on sutta.
Just to add to what Aya said, I love doing these, though normally for me it's 3 to 4 hours. If I start to go beyond 4, I risk troubles with one of my knees. And one of the most beneficial things that I learned the first time I did this was how many excuses your mind will come up with for why you should get up. So you'll learn a lot about how your mind works, where you will limit yourself especially. There were so many times through this where I'm like, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't sit for another second, and then I still continued to sit. So I would see where I was limiting myself and was able to learn from that. And when you sit for that long, I also started to be able to fine-tune how I need to sit and where I actually do have problems. Like sitting for this long is what helped me narrow down where my knee problems are and when I do actually have to move or get up. And also how I need to sit so that I can stay in a stable position for a longer time. So it not only got me much stronger mindfulness of my mind, but it also gave me much stronger mindfulness of my body. So those benefits were completely worth all the pain and the writhing and the I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. And then at the end, even though I was so grumpy throughout this whole thing, I was like, ah, what bliss, I should do this again. So it was really, really great. And every time I've done it since, sometimes just the whole thing sucks. Though around 2 hours usually things will start to really open up, and I can really start to relax and ease into it at that time. And that's where my mind will start to get much quieter and have some of the benefits that Aya Sobano was talking about. And other times the whole time is just pain and suffering, but I learned a lot from that too. So what I recommend doing, which you may have heard Bhante Sudaso recommend this as well, is if you're going to try this out, block out a week if you can, where you'll sit for that 3 to 4 hour period, preferably without moving, but at the very least without getting up. If you have to adjust, fine. Don't hurt yourself. Just don't get up. And during that time, if you stick with it for that whole week, it will completely transform your meditation. You will know so much more about your mind and your body by the end of it. And then that'll make 20-minute, 30-minute, and hour sessions super, super easy peasy. So it's a huge confidence booster. I highly recommend everybody does this at least once in their life. If you don't think you can do it on the floor, sit in a chair, do whatever you need to do to make it work out, but it's really worth it. I love it, and I wish I would do them more frequently actually, but I usually only do during retreats, since they are quite a block of time.
I will add to this that I heard on an occasion, this was a Vasa retreat, so there was not a complete retreat, but there was more time than usual. And the idea is that if you have probably within a retreat environment, you have the instruction and the opportunity to gain jhana. And then afterwards, if you sustain that 4 hours a day of practice, then you won't lose the ability to access the jhana state. But if you come out of that retreat and you go back to your ordinary life and sitting for 20 minutes or something like that, you will definitely lose the ability to get into jhana.
That's a good point to add as well. Thank you, Aya. Which also in general, that's a good point, because usually people are going to be sitting for 4 to 5 hours plus a day. They're at a retreat. When you go back to your day-to-day life, it's very hard to maintain that. So, do what you can, but don't necessarily expect to be able to have the same depth and breadth as meditation at home as you do at a retreat. So let's see. Okay, so randoms question. Greetings from Metro Detroit. I'm considering going back to work in an industry I spent 20 years in order to preserve my pension at 100%. But it is a known fact that doing so will come at a great cost to my mental health, as the work environment, co-workers, and customers tend to foster and harbor the defilements. I long for the comfort of financial stability, but is the cost too much? The first thing that comes to mind to me, since Aya's looking at me, so she must want me to answer, is something that I hear Bhante Sudaso say when people ask questions about livelihood. And one of the things he's brought up before is that right livelihood includes yourself. So if the job is going to hurt you, you're also a sentient being. It would not be right livelihood to go into an environment that is harming yourself, even if on paper it would be a incredibly meritorious job, like being a nurse or something else where you're taking care of other people. So if you feel like it is going to cause your mental health to tank, it probably isn't something that is a good idea to do. And depending upon the company and whatnot, financial stability still isn't necessarily guaranteed anyway. Things change all the time. Companies get liquidated and all sorts of problems. So without additional context of that, I can't say much about how stable it would actually be. And otherwise, if you can be creative and find another way to do whatever it is you need to do, I would try to go that route personally. It's not worth being miserable for 40 plus hours a week every week for however many more years you would need to secure your pension. Do you have any thoughts, Aya?
There's a tale about the merchant who wanted to take a meditation, but he thought he'd just do one more trip. And this is, to go out on a buying expedition and take it across the wilderness back to where he could sell them products that he had purchased. And well, he didn't make it. So he came to the end of that lifespan without having done the meditation because he was procrastinating on doing that spiritual work. It's kind of like easy for us to say because we're not facing the questions that Random Ramblings is facing as far as providing security for themselves and possibly for their family and so on like that. I have been in situations where the employer's ethics were not what they should be. And the thought that I had was, if I were more enlightened or more stabilized, that what was going on around me would not hurt me. But at that point, at the practice that I was in then, I couldn't be in that situation without harm to myself.
So it's something you'll have to decide for yourself, Ramblings. So Anam asks, good to see you both. Could you please talk about the benefit of Kalyanamitas?
In the teaching about stream entry, the Buddha frequently gives us a set of conditions which are the approximate cause for gaining stream entry. And the first one is to associate with true persons. That's a sappurisa, but it's a similar concept as the Kalyanamitta. So in this case, the classic pattern of the story is that there's somebody who's living an ordinary life as a householder, and then they begin to become disillusioned. They realize, they're just disappointed with a householder's life. And then they happen to encounter the Buddha, or they happen to encounter an enlightened teacher. And they understand there's a different possibility. You would, except for the extremely rare case, a person would not be able to make that transition from being disappointed with the life that you were born into over to a spiritual path without finding the example of somebody. So even just reading it in books or Googling on the internet, you could not necessarily be able to make that transition to a different way of thinking. So there's something about the face-to-face connection with somebody who has what you want, that you can really learn what's possible by seeing it modeled in another living human being. Kalyanamitas are ones who will not gossip about your faults, but they will speak easily and frequently about your good qualities. They will be able to disclose their own faults to you, and they will be ones who you can speak to confidentially, and they will respect your confidence and keep your secrets. In other words, that the Kalyanamitta is somebody who's a trustworthy, reliable person, and in fact, having somebody who knows you well enough to see your weaknesses and see your faults is the other tremendous benefit of having a Kalyanamitta. If you're able to disclose your weak points and not have to just always pretend to be good. I mean, it is useful to pretend to be good because, in a way, you act as if, and then eventually you become as good as you want to be. But to be able to really have a trustworthy friend that you can disclose your weaknesses to, and then that friend is going to really be able to help you. But it must be somebody who's trustworthy and reliable.
Thank you, Aya. Hello, Rick. Ryan asks, as a follow-up to the previous question, on the 4-hour blocks, is there a particular practice or object of meditation to make the most of these blocks? Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Rick asks, Venerables, can you share some reflections on the skillful and unskillful use of food on the mind and practice?
Food is the nutriment of the body. There is a whole really deep and profound set of teachings about the nutriments, which we acknowledge is what is necessary to continue our existence as a living individual. So the good side of using the nutriments of life, including food, is that you get to live another day, to continue to have a chance to progress in your practice, progress in your life. The downside of nutriment is that if the only pattern that you have in your mind is to extend your existence, if the only thing you want to do is to live for a while longer, then when you come to the end of this lifespan, your mind will still be fixated in this pattern of wanting to live a while longer. And that's how you get to go on to another rebirth, or how you get to keep going around and around in samsara. So in that case, the practice with food is to see the gratification with the food. That is, the food, because the food helps us live, then our instincts that we've inherited, our animal instincts, have given us all of this other tendencies that when you see food, you begin to, salivate, and your stomach gets ready to start doing the digestion process, and the body starts to relax, and you're definitely like attracted to go towards the food. And if you're hungry, the hunger is an unpleasant feeling, and you get the sense that as soon as you get a few bites of food in your body, you're not going to be hungry anymore, and that's going to be so pleasant. And it's because of that contrast, or the escape from pain of hunger, that you get so much of the pleasure involved with food. So that's the gratification, but then you should also see the danger. And the danger is at two levels. One is merely at the practical level. Food is pleasant for about a minute, but then afterwards it's not that pleasant. After it's been in your stomach for a while, it's not that pleasant anymore, and when you expel it as poo, it's not that pleasant. If you eat too much, or if you're, like some people, after they eat, they might feel really tired and have to take a nap after the meal, because they're digesting the food in the way they react to food. And there's like so much work that goes into food. How many hours do you have to work at your job in order to earn enough to buy the groceries or to buy the meal? And how many hours did some poor laborer spend growing the food? How many insects had to die to make that food? How many trees were cut down to make that food? So there's like a lot of suffering that goes into the creation of food. So at that level, you can see the danger, and then you also see the further danger that if you get too engrossed, or in a simple-minded way, you're too absorbed with the pleasure of food, that's what can keep you going around in samsara. In the reflection that we do, there's one, it says that we will destroy old feelings and not produce new feelings. And this is described, or it's translated in an explanatory way as destroying the feeling of hunger and not producing the new feeling of overeating. In my opinion, the meaning of that phrase is actually the Vedana is the fruit or the result of the previous comments that we've done. So we should think that I'm destroying the previous comments that I've done, and I'm not creating new karma while eating. So, and that would mean that you would try to eat in a way which is as harmless as possible. So you're not harming the earth, you're not trying to harm people, you're not trying to exploit anybody, and I'm definitely not trying to harm your own body with the choices you make about eating.
Thank you, Aya. So Elliot asks, what is your favorite benefit of metta? I think for me, I'm somebody prone to aversion and fault finding, and it just has helped me be less aversive and less fault finding. So like maybe I'll still see areas where I or somebody else needs to improve, and need is actually a strong word there. Maybe it's just my opinion and they're totally fine. I can also see all the wonderful, beautiful ways that they're contributing to being here at the monastery, since that's usually how I'm interacting with people now. So it's made me more pleasant to live with myself and more pleasant for everybody else to be around me. Kin asks, what does wisdom mean from the teaching of the Dhamma?
Well, Kin, throughout this Risanvasa, I was looking into the gradual training, which is usually divided into ethics, meditation, and wisdom, or sila, samadhi, and panya. In that case, the wisdom is that transformative insight into, you could say, the three marks of existence, but really it's one thing with three aspects. So when you understand that everything is ephemeral, everything is constantly changing, there's no essence to be found anywhere, that there's no eternal self, or there's nothing that needs to be defended or protected, that it's simply a process, and that then as a result of that, one can clearly also see the dukkha that's involved whenever we take something that's fleeting and impermanent and we try to grasp and hold on to it. How hard that is, how it's impossible. So when you get that eye-opening insight, actually in the classical teachings, that is your stream entry. So it's when that transformative insight happens, you will not go backwards. You'll know that 90% of what you needed to do as a human being or as a sentient being is already done, and there's only just a little bit left to do in the time that's left, however many lives you have as a sentient being on this world. And the transformative effect of that, what's given us the benefit of stream entry in terms of not falling down to a lower realm. Well, it's when you get that, it turns the psychology around so that one is deeply, deeply, profoundly safe. Nothing is able to really harm you once you have that opening of wisdom. I would say that actually people who've had that breakthrough to wisdom in the time before they get their full awakening, they can be some of the greatest and most beneficial individuals in the world because they've got a kind of a fearlessness and a mental stability, but they're still able to experience some of the defilements. So they kind of like they know what suffering is, so they can like, so in a certain way, like sympathize and connect with what dukkha is, because they're not home yet, and yet, you know, the eye is open and they see things as they are, and so then they're able to be, you know, heroes in the world, heroes on behalf of speaking out for the welfare of humanity.
Thank you, Aya. Hello, Jojo. They ask, Venerables, how much of a situation is due to karma and how much not? Is a majority of our experience due to karma? So, depending upon who you ask, you'll get a different answer. I know of a disagreement within some bhikkhu friends I have where one will say, yes, everything is karma, and the other one will say no, because there's, I think, 2 suttas in Grutta Nikaya somewhere and 2 in the Samyutta Nikaya that lists things other than karma that can cause something. The one in particular that's coming to mind lists different causes of like bodily afflictions in particular, but I don't remember what the specifics are in the list. So,
Is the Girimananda?
maybe, I don't know the name of the sutta.
Yeah, they list like 30 or 40 different kinds of illnesses, and only one of them is illness due to karma.
Yeah, so that's one of the suttas
Yeah.
that people that are on that side of the fence will use, but it'll depend upon who you ask.
If everything is determined by karma, then there's not an opportunity for free will. So the Buddha knows that we have a free will, that we have the possibility of choosing the next action that we're going to take. And that's the most important karma of all. Karma, actually, to be technical, karma is the action, the ethical, intentional action that one takes. And then the result of that is called the vipaka, or the fruit. So everything that you do intentionally is a karma. All the karmas that you do will have a result. In one of the commentarial works, they give several different kinds of causation, or laws of nature, and karma is one of the laws of nature. But there are other laws too, like the law that governs the weather, or the law that governs plants arising according to the seed. So those are biological, so there's all things that it's acknowledging that there's stuff happening in the universe which is not the result of karma. So it's not karma that caused the plate tectonic to shift and creating a tsunami. But it was karma that chose some person to be in a particular time and space when that tsunami came. And it will be karma whether that person who's maybe loses their life in a tsunami, either they're headed for hell or they're headed for nirvana as a result of their karma. So, but the main thing with karma is that the Buddha said you have the choice in each moment. And the karma is in our path, there's an escape from karma. Enlightenment is an escape from karma. So, as a result of insight, previous actions that we've done are no longer effective in causing us to be reborn again and again. So karma is not everything.
So I was able to give you a very compelling argument for that side. If you would like to hear the other side sometime, ask when Bhante Sudaso is back, because he's one of the people that I know on the other side of the aisle. So thank you, Aya. So Uttara asks, how significant is it to have spiritual friends? I mean, based off Aya's previous answer, extremely significant. I mean, you had the Kama to encounter the Dhamma, the affinity to practice it, and then you were able to find people that have a similar interest and can support you in your practice. So that means you have a chance at awakening. That's pretty significant.
Yes.
Ryan asks, Venerables, I plan to solo retreat soon. Should I go full Ananda for an entire week without sleeping? Thank you. Probably not. If you don't have enough sleep, it can cause a whole lot of problems for the functioning of your body and your mind. You could try out how you do for like 24 hours or something. I've done that before, and even that's rough. So I can't imagine doing a whole week. You just unless you have very, 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 very good meditation, I don't think it'll actually benefit you at all.
The pattern that we see mentioned in the suttas is 4 hours of sleep during retreat. And also in the Dhutanga practices that are recommended, one of the allowed Dhutanga practices is the sitting practice, where you don't lie down. However, I don't hear of going a full week without sleep as being a Dhutanga practice, which is allowed by the Blessed One for his monks. So that's another reason not to think of it. Staying, going overnight once in a while is fine. Or going on a very regular basis, going with that 4 hours a night is a good practice.
That's a good reflection as well. Thank you, Aya. Hello, Manal. Hello, Bhumika. Yifang asks, nowadays, lots of people lost their jobs. What can we do to help them ease their anxiety? Thank you.
Yes, the world is definitely insecure, and it's going much worse than it was decades ago when we were younger. There's more insecurity in so many different ways than there was before. So I actually recommend the meditation practice of loving kindness and compassion as a way of tuning the heart with the willingness to see suffering in the world, and then to tune the heart to be able to respond effectively. In doing the compassion meditation, it's not the wise approach to just focus on the suffering and to stir up your own sadness or anxiety or misery because of being aware of suffering in the world, that can cause compassion fatigue. Eventually, it's like too much, and you sort of like dull out to it. If instead you would visualize the end of dukkha, visualize the situation where the person is successful in managing their situation, successful in coming out of their situation, successful in coming to the end of suffering, or even visualizing a way that a society which would be a better society, that would be more compassionate and caring towards those who are in economic hardship. And so then by visualizing positive as part of the cultivation of compassion, the karuna meditation, then you will be energized and uplifted instead of being depressed and anxious. Furthermore, the practice of equanimity is very important, so that you will know that in this world, throughout history, there are some amount of both good and bad, which is outside of your control. And to develop the ability for your own mind to be not disturbed by things which are outside of your control. All beings are the heir of their karma and experience the result of their karma. And to know that as a fact, that doesn't mean that you are indifferent or cold and callous and not having the desire or the willingness to help for people who are suffering. But you also are doing it from that place of equanimity. So then you are equanimous and you're visualizing coming the end of dukkha. And then from that, you would intuitively know the right thing to do for your friends and people who've lost their jobs.
Thank you, Aya. Something small to just add to that is also see what you can do. So when people lose their jobs, something they often worry about is how are they going to have their next meal. So if you have the means to be able to help them, even in little ways, like providing a meal, that's something that you can do to help ease some of their hardship. Hello, Tim. He asks, how do you keep UPCW? I don't know what that means. So Tim, you might need to let us know what that acronym means, because the only thing I could think of is like the Postal Worker Union or something, and that's not relevant to us.
Yes.
Another question from Tim. I've been wondering for some time, how do you stay up to date with culture, technology, current affairs while preserving your mendicancy? Personally, I don't keep up with those things, so it's not a problem. If I hear about them, it's somebody at the monastery.
This is a case where it's possible that somebody who doesn't keep up with culture, technology, etc., they still encounter it by way of the students with the questions that they ask, or people send you messages, or you get things on Facebook, and you get these little scripts and scraps, which are in a certain way not enough to be capable. I look at some information about the news on a strict, limited budget of my time and effort, and I do it for the purpose of effective compassion, I'll say. So I'm interested in understanding dukkha, understanding ethics and morality, and seeing the actual situations that face the world, the ethical situations that face us, the ethical choices, and the challenges in finding the wise way through to try to get beyond the mess that the human race has created, is something that I could be wrong, can make for a more intelligent compassion, in the sense that, well, the Buddha said dukkha should be fully understood. So, like, understanding why people keep on making these horrible choices. Why is that? Why is that? And it's okay to reflect about that. But on the other hand, to the extent that I've been able to let many things, especially technology things, pass by, and to just be grateful that other people are looking after that is quite good, quite beneficial. It's really a relief for the mind, and really supports practice to be able to stay away from some of those things. As far as mendicancy, mendicancy is really being satisfied with what the requisites of life that come our way, and being satisfied with whatever comes. And there is a possibility, even in monastic life, a monk could think of some little thing that they think they need, and then could go into the Amazon and could look up like exactly just the thing that would satisfy whatever the situation is, and then that monk could hint around with their donors to try to get that particular thing that they are interested in. And in my opinion, that's really a tremendous danger to mendicancy. And so I don't get involved with that unless there's some reason why somebody demands that I do so. Okay, I got something with my health insurance that I could get a little fitness product or some weight thing, and my insurance gave me a little benefit card. It's like you can get a certain amount of stuff. And so I looked online, and I got some little like ankle weights, so I can do exercises and become fit. But that's, I think, the only shopping that I've done since coming to the Empty Cloud. So it's a real wonderful advantage to mendicancy to be able to avoid all that.
Thank you, Aya. Good evening, Bari. He asks, during meditation, I noticed my unwholesome qualities, and facing them can be difficult at times. Could you speak about this, please?
Actually, this has been requested, and I've been looking into it and having a conversation with one of our students about this. Basically, it is good to acknowledge the unwholesome states of mind when they come up, but not to be carried away with ruminating and proliferating with thoughts about those unwholesome qualities. To try to really put a budget or a limit on dwelling on the thought aspect, like the opinions, the view, the story, the description, or whatever that's associated with those unwholesome qualities. Just see, like, the mental part and try to let it go. If it's something that's emotional, you could find that there's a certain amount of like stress in the body. And if you sort of like separate the bodily thing from the mental idea and release the idea, the mental part, and then just in a very compassionate way stay with the bodily stress until it gets unwound. Sometimes it takes a few minutes or longer for bodily stress to become discharged and to be able to return to a relaxed state. But there's a lot. If you stay tuned, you may hear more from me about abandoning unwholesome qualities.
Thank you, Aya. The next question is for you from Rick. Thank you for your reflections on food. Can you share some reflections on the skillful use of the other three nutriments?
Well, you could look at, if you go to my personal YouTube channel, you could find my retreat about the 4 nutriments that I gave a few years ago. And the main thing, all of them have got a similar quality. Knowing that the process of the nutriments is dukkha, that the nutriments are aspects of causation. So you can see causation happening. And developing nibbida or disillusionment towards the nutriments. So that's like the general, and that applies to all of them. The sense impressions, sense contact, the sensory and mental contact is the condition for feelings. So then you can train like in doing mindful contemplation of Vedana, or also contemplating the 6 sense bases. You can develop your mindfulness and your awareness so strongly to be able to see, like, just that moment there's a sense impression, and then a feeling arises from that. And if you see if you can like capture the moments and see when the feeling is arising and where it came from in terms of a contact, that's really, really helpful. And then the mental volition, that's karma. So that both feeds your rebirth, and it also, the karma sometimes has its fruit in this lifetime. So you see that the choices you make today could result in some experience that you're going to have tomorrow. And so you see that. And then, and this can be done, again, like doing a contemplation, just trying to like train the mind to be actually like aware of the choices you make. If you're aware, like people make choices all the time and they don't even know what they're doing because they're just oblivious to their own process. So if you become aware of the choices, and then if you come across like some either positive or even a painful experience, and if you can see, wow, that's I bought this, it's on the ticket, I earned this suffering from the choice that I made. And just to acknowledge that. There's a friend of mine very frequently describes his turning point in his whole practice was at some point after long meditation, he had a sort of like a earth-shaking for him insight that everything that had ever happened to him, he had chosen. Every single thing that ever happened to him was a result of his choices. And it was quite transformational to have that knowledge. And then the last of the nutriments, which is called consciousness, or probably vijnana, and it said that it feeds the nama rupa, the name and form or mentality materiality, which is coming together at the moment of conception or the moment of birth. So the meditation or the reflection about this, or if you've got a great spiritual gift, you may be able to experience your birth at the beginning of this lifetime, and possibly in previous lifetimes you could experience the moment of birth, and you could experience how consciousness it comes together and supports the arising of what's called Namarupa. That's the initial arising of an individual person or an individual sentient being. This is the Namarupa. So that's the meaning of them, and they're all fairly deep aspects of the Dhamma that can be reflected upon, and for some people can be experienced directly, like in meditation, especially material food, the connection between contact and feeling, and the connection between volition or choices and the results. Those three are things that you can experience directly if you learn what these nutriments are, how they are said to operate in the teaching of the Dhamma, and then examine your own experience to see if these things are true or not. So you can develop, it's like called developing a perception. So you've got something that's more like a theoretical idea, but once you've pondered about it, then you can apply that to your own experience, and you can find out whether it's true or not that these patterns are happening, that they can be seen by you. And when you can see them directly within your own experience, then it's possible to no longer be a prisoner of that process.
Thank you, Aya. Ryan asks, Venerables, on a different topic, have you found anywhere a chronological progression of the teachings of the Buddha? Would this be beneficial for our practice? So something that does come to mind is the gradual training, depending upon what you mean by chronological progression, because that could be used as a means of going from a patujana all the way to awakening, but I don't know if that's quite what you're asking for.
The scholars sometimes discuss some sutras that they say are early and some sutras that they say are later, with the implication, which I think is not necessarily true, that the early teachings were collected or memorized soon after the Buddha's parinibbana, and that the later, so-called later teachings were ones that were modified by subsequent development in thought and culture. So they may have evolved 100, 200 or longer after the lifetime of the Buddha, and affected by the thought process of those people who were collecting them. I wonder if that's really true. It seems to me that it would be equally useful to think that when the Buddha first was awakened, he began his teaching. And then over the period of time, he was having discussions and conversations with hundreds and hundreds of different students. And so there's a kind of like a process of a dialogue. And the students are learning the Dhamma that the Buddha is teaching. And then like any teacher, if you're teaching something to the students, you've got a set of lists or, the tick list, the points, the teaching points that you've got to get across as a teacher. And then you're checking with the students to see if the students are able to show their understanding of the different lists that you're teaching them. And so it seems to me that some of the lists that we see in the teaching could have evolved during the Buddha's own very lifetime as he was going through 50 years. If I was a professor and I was teaching students for 50 years, I would have some lists. And so if you wanted to consider what might have been the late teaching of the Buddha, you could go to the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, which is describing the last journey that the Buddha took, where he went from town to town to town, and he was substantially giving them the same teaching over and over and over again. And this was the point that the Buddha was like thinking about his legacy, saying, these are the Dhamma points that I don't want to get lost. I want to make sure you fix them in your mind. And it was the what's called the 7 sets, or the Wings to Awakening, is given in that sutta. If you wanted to think of something that might be early, you could look at the Sutta Nipata, which is quite different in its character from the other teachings. And I like to think it's because maybe it was when the Dhamma was very fresh and he's not yet developed all of his lists in the same final format.
Thank you, Aya. Hello, Boron Kamatanaha tradition. Rick asks, Aya, can you share some reflections on becoming the abbot of Empty Cloud?
I only did this because I had the feeling that some of the supporters and friends of Empty Cloud might have been feeling anxious about having made so much effort in obtaining this particular location, this beautiful, gigantic historical dwelling, which is so unique in being close to a large population center, and at the same time being spacious, and at the same time being fairly quiet and surrounded by a very beautiful bit of parkland. And so then they were wanting to know whether the Sangha would stick around and be there for them, and be supporting, like doing the work to cause the Sangha to exist at this particular venue, this particular location. So as a monk, I don't need to live in a castle. I lived in a $10,000 kuti for some time, with a hole in the ground, and no electricity, and no running water, and it was fine. But here, the Buddha is really great. The Buddha is wonderful. The Buddha is worthy of respect, worthy of veneration, and having a beautiful place, if we take that as symbolizing the love and respect and veneration we have for the Buddha, the love and respect we have for the Dhamma and for the Sangha, and thinking that it's nice to have a very solid, good, big enough space, that would be a good thing to do. And so I'm willing to stick around as long as I'm alive, and then when I get to be old and feeble, then I'm going to stick around some more, and others can take care of me. The only other thing to say is it's not that it's not very common to have a monastery in the West, which is open for people from different cultures. Having a monastery which is friendly and welcoming for not only the Theravada but the other Buddhist traditions is also not very common. And to have a monastery which is gender inclusive is also quite unusual, quite uncommon. And so it's something that's really of value in this world for Buddhism to thrive, in order to have a place where monastics can come and practice for liberation, and is along the way share the Dhamma as we're doing tonight.
Thank you, Aya. Hello, Joseph. Random Ramblings asked for your YouTube, so I linked it in the comments.
It's youtube.com/IESOmana.
Yep, that's what I put in there.
Okay.
And then Ryan clarifies that for the chronological question, I meant throughout his 45 years of ministry. Examples, where did the Buddha spend Vasa at, and what he taught during each Vasa, etc.
Yeah, that's not known. There's a lot of many unanswered questions about what that sequence was and which teachings were happening in what sequences. But what I said about the Sutta Nipata and the Mahaparinibbana Sutta as the bookends, I think is something that would be accepted. If you read the other personalities that the Buddha is speaking to, and if you look up in the dictionary of Pali proper names, and look at the life history of those disciples of the Buddha, it also can help with getting orientated about when the teachings were given, or something about the history of the teachings. But it's not really clear, like which sutras he taught at what point in his career.
Thank you, Aya. And that's the last question I see online.
Perfect.
All right, so I guess we'll wrap up here then. So thank you everybody for attending tonight. As usual, tomorrow we will have our Saturday program from 6 o'clock to 7:30. And then on Sunday at 8 a.m. we have volunteer hours. At 11 o'clock a.m. we have our meal offering. And then we have our program from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And everybody is welcome. If people don't know, our Wednesday through Friday puja, which is usually 6:30 to 7:15 on Wednesday and Friday, and on Thursday it is 6:30 to 8 o'clock. Everybody is welcome to come if that is something they're interested in as well. Meanwhile, be well, Suki Hotu, practice well, and until next time. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.